Occupational medicine is a subject of increasing interest in the countries in which we operate, being not only a concern of organizations but having to comply with some legal requirements. There is the need for employees to undergo periodical medical aptitude examinations to demonstrate they are clinically able to perform their duties, not only in their admission or resignation, but also during the time in which they work for organizations. Other concerns have been added to the central issue of medical aptitude examinations, namely in terms of more specific medical issues, occupational accidents, and diseases. The module M470, Occupational Medicine, aims at answering all such concerns. Taking into account the employee's health, there are still concerns about environmental sanitation and occupational safety and health. There is the conditions in which workers perform their functions in workplaces. Whether regarding sanitation and environment parameters such as aeration, light, noise, and ergonomics, whether regarding protective equipment to be disposed at facilities and workplaces and to be used by people, or regarding overall risks they face and their prevention in terms of resources and actions. For that reason, we have a specific module, the M471, Occupational Safety and Health. But there are still cases in which companies also worry about curative medicine, particularly through the implementation of internal clinical stations. For such cases, we have articulated with this current module the module M475, Clinical Stations, which deals with more specific care and treatment issues that these clinical stations require, in conjunction with diagnosis elements and the clinic conceptions and stocks. Now resuming this module, the only one that will be addressed in this video, it allows the registration, control, and reporting of information related to employees, individual data and health status relevant to their duties or functions, medical aptitude examinations for functions and other supplementary or additional exams that employees must undergo or they have been scheduled, occupational accidents, occupational disease, outputs and several stations reports. That's what we should see next, starting with the base menu of this module.
We highlight in this first section a set of information necessary to the framework and parameterization of the activities supported by this module, namely the registration of people clinics attributes, which depending on what is allowed by law in each country with respect to registration of such information are defined by the user and might help to characterize people for medical purposes and might also be included in their medical records. The registration of entities and technicians, that is, the various organizations, physicians, and other technicians involved in the process. The relationship between such entities and technicians, that is, which entities registered physicians and technicians belong or are linked to, like departments and people's workplaces, defined jobs and functions. Here follows the typification of exams, such as the types of exams defined in terms of legal requirements and other related to occupational medicine, the classification of exams in terms of their clinical content of the clinical acts involved, and a typification of results, particularly for the purposes of occupational medicine, fit, unfit, among others. In the middle section of the menu are highlighted the most specific everyday facilities of the occupational medicine itself, such as accomplished and planned medical exams seen under several perspectives, such as medical exams per date, which is the agenda generally used nowadays, Last, an exam per person, essential to keep someone informed and which may be accessible on the web through the employees portal. And exams viewed through people, exams per date and people, exams per grouping. The follow, occupational accidents, under which accidents can be registered and characterized in a generic way, as well accidents in terms of each person. That is, accidents that each person has had, which is critical in terms of information reporting requirements of occupational medicine. There are also their respective events and occupational diseases which can also be recorded and characterized in a general way, and in terms of each person, which is normally required by the occupational medicine. On the right are outputs and statistics highlighting. Medical records are outputs per person that aggregate several pieces of information, from biographical data and clinical attributes to summaries of examinations, occupational accidents, and disease. The likely content of such records is also legislated and vary from country to country, and may be even prohibited for most organizations, provided they are available. The access to them is also much regulated. It is therefore a very sensitive issue to be resolved early in the implementation of this module, and is the sole responsibility of the subscriber. This module may even be parameterized during the implementation in order to not display some functionalities related to the handling of such information. Here are the outputs defined by the users regarding exams and other record information, as well as the execution of specific outputs of the organization, particularly to meet legal requirements, charts, or files the organization is subject to. And finally, a set of statistics that can be obtained by various filtering and aggregation criteria, such as statistics on exams, statistics on accidents, and statistics on disease.
The registration of the people to be object of examinations, as well as entities, doctors, and technicians related to these exams, is a basic requirement for the system. In this context, it is possible to link each entity to their respective physicians and other technicians, as well as set specialties, and also link them to their respective physicians and technicians. Let us see how to carry out such registration and relationship.
The use of this module requires the registration of people who shall be the object of occupational medicine, as these people are usually employees, and provided they are already used in other modules of ours related to human resources, it is natural that such records already exist. Let's consider now the typical information on people. We will choose the employee 3%, which means we shall search all employees whose numbers start with 3. And let us view a record to check the information available. There is the panel regarding to data of the person, number, name, full name, tax ID number, gender, date of birth, and educational level. There are two panels for biographical data. The first panel oriented to the biographical data concerning the name of the father, mother, nationality, place of birth. And the second panel essentially containing data related to identification documents, military status, and driver's license. Next follows a panel concerning address data, namely address, email, phone number. We can see in this work list this information, and here are in direct way the documents associated to it, as documents can be associated to each record, which are then opened through links. For instance, there is in here one employee's resume. Given the nature of this module, it might be important to add other attributes to the mentioned record, particularly the ones of clinical nature. Our applications allow any attributes to be added in the base of people. Let's see it. Let's view the clinical attributes of the employee 3001. In this example, 4 attributes were added: height, weight, blood pressure, and blood type. Note that one can create and add any desired attributes, such as these ones, which are dated, as seen on the right. So one can even enter the same attribute on several dates, along with its evolution, for example, the evolution of weight or blood pressure. This information will be part of the clinical summary. One should, however, take into account that the type of information to be registered and the access to it is largely governed by the laws of each country. The records of entities, physicians, and technicians are autonomous and contain all the necessary information about them. However, it is sometimes important to relate physicians and technicians with entities such as clinics and insurance companies that a given physician is related to. For example, this is the purposes of this option, registering such relationships. The following is a set of options relevant to the classification of employees, particularly organization units and departments, buildings, jobs and functions. Without entering into detail, let's view them briefly. Let's check the organization units. Let's click on OK and view all organization units and departments that exists in our company. And here is a list of the various departments created that will be used later on for the placement of a given employee. Let's check now the buildings and places. Again, let's request all the buildings and places loaded in our demo company. They are, for example, warehouses in this case, warehouse A and warehouse B. Also, within each warehouse, there are the respective rooms. These warehouses and these rooms can then be used later on to hold all the medical examinations of each employee. We shall also examine a list of jobs and functions loaded in the system. Let's click on OK, and for instance, let's check the function of Financial Director and view this record. Then, regarding the job or function, one can set a code along with its description, but we can go even further and set the tasks supposed to be performed in this job, the requirements needed in order to keep this job, the questionnaire used in the performance evaluation system, and which regimes are subjected to the effects of occupational medicine. In this case, it is subject to the general regime. Also concerning security and protection equipment, there could be a list of the equipment required for this job.
The type of exams to be provided must be registered for the proper functioning of the system. What should be stressed are the medical aptitude examinations for the functions to be performed, exams which might be registered. Whether regarding a synthesis certification, fit or not fit, along with any observation and identification of the party responsible for that certification, were also broken down into all supplementary details, exams, necessary to support aptitude exams. Regarding the types of examinations, their description and periodicity must also be registered, as well as whom they apply to, taking into account the jobs and functions concerned. Let's see the registration of types of exams.
The typification of exams consists primarily of setting the types of exams concerning occupational medicine, the typification of exams as far as clinical terms are concerned, and the typification of results of examinations. Let's see these options. There are, for example, admission examinations, periodic examinations, and occasional examinations. It is possible within occasional examinations to discriminate, for example, what it is about: job change, relocation, and return to workplace after an absence of 30 days. This is a set of codes to be used later on, when we get to working with the medical exams and then used in statistical indicators. Regarding the classification of medical examinations, there is a set of codes that are free and can be created according to customer needs. These codes first have to characterize medical examinations best and will be used later on in the section of statistics. In typification of results, there is a set of codes to characterize the results, being the most usual ones: fit, not fit, conditionally fit. Again, these are general codes that can be created according to the requirements of each customer.
Periodical medical exams are a key component of occupational medicine. They vary according to age and job, function, and activities at issue, but have a standard, a certain periodicity that should be scheduled, reported, and managed. Therefore, apart from the registration of examinations themselves and their results, particularly in terms of aptitude for the job, which are essential, the management of examinations and their periodicity is also essential. Such management practice includes the planning of examinations and notice, as well as the scheduling of extra exams and the follow-up of the obtainment of diagnosis elements, among others. Let's consider these activities.
There are several options for exams, but the essential of everyday activities has to do with the option medical examinations per date. Let's see. Let's click on OK, and here's a list of medical examinations by date. One of the situations that draws our attention is the status XO, which means that these exams have already been performed, and the pending exams are the ones that have been generated for the future. Regarding the exams, the information available is date, time, type and number of the exam, a description, in this case the result is fit, the employee and the physician involved. According to the type of exams, there are commands that can be given automatically based on the predefined rules, for example, to generate the next exam, taking into account the person's age. Another way of viewing this information, as seen in the chart medical examinations by date, is entering in last and next examination per person. Here is the same information through arranged in a different way. In this case, there is a person, the date of the last exam, and the date of the next exam, in case it has been already scheduled. Another way to view the information on medical examination is entering the option People and Exams per Date. Let's click on OK, and here's the person, and next to each person are the exams each one has undergone or will undergo, along with their respective data. Well, it's exactly the same information available in the medical examinations, through seen from the perspective of each employee. Finally, there is the option People and Exams per Grouping, another listing having a different arrangement of the information on medical examinations. Let's click on OK. Therefore, the same information is displayed, but the structure of the listing is different.
Occupational accidents and diseases are another focus of occupational medicine. Apart from having to be duly registered and monitored, these occurrences must often meet certain legal requirements, which must be taken into account, ensure they are met, and establish a history base in the system that can be accessed at any time. Let's now consider some aspects of the registration of occupational accidents and diseases.
Both occupational accidents and diseases are recorded in the system based on a similar data model. On the one hand, there is a handling of the accident and the occupational diseases themselves, that is, their identification, characteristics, consequences, causes, and preventive measures, among other issues. On the other hand, there is the actual affection on people, the record of accidents of each person, any occupational diseases acquired by each person, along with all relevant information associated, not only medical information, but also the one related to medical insurance, indemnities, and others. Entering in occupational accidents, there is a list of registered accidents. Let's check the first accident. There is a description of it, including the location, collapse of a structure at the Lisbon building. There is the information on damage, liabilities, insurance, and authorities involved. The damage are 2 workers who suffered minor injuries and the destruction of great part of the structure. There is the sum of the costs associated, and finally the causes, prevention, measures, and remarks. Let us now access the accidents in terms of the people affected. Let's click on OK. And in the listing is the identification of the accident, its description, a set of typification codes such as the type of injury, location of injury, disability costs, consequent job changes, medical leaves, and related costs. What clearly stands out in here is a person involved in this case, Mrs. Mary Smith Costa Macedo, employee number 3004. If we enter the panels of this option, we would see information largely similar to that already displayed for the accident itself, now directed to a person in particular, highlighting the consequences to the person. However, another very important aspect is the registration of events, the succession of events linked to accidents. For example, when selecting Mary Smith and jumping to events, we see a succession of them, starting with the communication to the police and firemen on day April 1st. Then follows the admission at the Red Cross Hospital the same day, investigations on the following day, until the closure of the accident on September 24th. Let us now enter the list of occupational diseases. Let us click on OK and see their identification, description, in this case tendinites, insurance companies, and authorities involved, as well as the cases, preventions, measures, and remarks. In the listing of occupational diseases per people, all the information is connected to people. For example, Mary Jane Stewart May had tendinitis, which results in 4 days leave. Events are also managed under diseases. In this case, Mary Josephine had dizziness and instability. When accessing the events, we noticed her admission to the Maltese Cross Hospital on January 1st and her discharge 12 days later. In conclusion, all the information about occupational accidents and diseases is classified according to various criteria for the purposes of further statistical and output analysis, including those on demand for legal purposes in accordance with the rules of the country concerned. Medical records can be generated from all the operating information available in the system, on-demand outputs for specific purposes, including legal requirements for statistics and for analysis. We again draw your attention to the restrictions in force in each country and circumstance with regard to the registration and access to clinical information, reason why the outputs in generally, and particularly the medical records, should be adjusted accordingly. Entering medical records and choosing the employee number 3001, we get her medical record, highlighting the header of the medical record along with the basic identification of the organization and the employee, a section containing biographical and professional data deemed relevant, such as gender, date of birth, ID number, profession, and other ones. Clinical attributes deemed relevant in each organization, and the history of the medical examinations, employees' occupational accidents, and diseases. This record is available in the system over the web, but can be printed anytime, included in PDF format. Let's illustrate that. Let's choose the option Print. Choose the printed for PDF format. And here is our record in PDF format. The definition of on-demand outputs aims at resolving more specific issues of each organization, including any legal charts. We will not dwell on them, as the parameterization of this type of outputs is similar in all modules, and is therefore addressed in the videos on the Altoga interface and facilities common to most modules. Let us move on to statistics and illustrate with statistics on medical exams. There is a criteria screen where we can choose the type of exam, job, physician. And here is a panel of aggregations, where we can define how we want to aggregate and disaggregate data. Let's start by requesting data from all the exams aggregated by organic unit. Then there is the organization, place, organic unit, type of exam, and quantity. Let's now specify more the information and change our aggregation criteria. We now disaggregate by age group and gender. We now have this additional information available, that is, statistical reports allow the aggregation or disaggregation of the information according to the purpose in mind.
We have presented in this video the module Occupational Medicine, Safety and Health, along with the necessary details for a first assessment on the interests of your organization. We remind you that the implementation of this module may be phased, having in the first phase, for instance, only planning, registration, and communication regarding the medical aptitude examinations for the functions to be performed. We also highlight the possibility of implementing this module in the independent way, regardless of the system currently used, as this module is available on the web in cloud computing from our service. No need for any on-site installation either. This dialogue may be deepened in a dialogue with us for a better analysis of your needs and the answers we have to them. We and the network of partners we integrate are fully prepared to listen to and support you.